Hi, I'm Angie Hicks, co-founder of Angie, and one thing I've learned is that you buy a house, but you make it a home. Because with every fix, update, and renovation, it becomes a little more your own. So you need all your jobs done well. For nearly 30 years, Angie has helped millions of homeowners hire skilled pros for the projects that matter. From plumbing to electrical, roof repair to deck upgrades. So leave it to the pros who will get your jobs done well. Hire high-quality certified pros at Angie.com. Hi, I'm Angie Hicks, co-founder of Angie, and one thing I've learned is that you buy a house, but you make it a home. Because with every fix, update, and renovation, it becomes a little more your own. So you need all your jobs done well. For nearly 30 years, Angie has helped millions of homeowners hire skilled pros for the projects that matter. From plumbing to electrical, roof repair to deck upgrades. So leave it to the pros who will get your jobs done well. Hire high-quality certified pros at Angie.com.
Screw it all in, with the camera and the angles and trying to get it in there.
Exactly.
And then he pays you, and then what happened?
This is the plaintiff, Patrick Quinn. He says he contacted the defendant to fix his central air conditioning system, and he replaced his condenser at a cost of $950. Once that job was done, he noticed the air wouldn't shut off when the room got down to temperature, and it just kept running. After a few months of back and forth with the defendant, the problem was finally discovered, but his electric bills skyrocketed during this ordeal, and he feels the defendant should pay the extra $1,500 he had to spend on energy bills. So he's suing. This is the defendant, Osmond Kamak. He says he fixed the guy's air conditioning unit and he complained it wasn't shutting off, so he went back to check on things. He told the plaintiff his heater wasn't working properly, and both units were working and competing with one another. The plaintiff failed to get his heating system fixed for a few months, and he should pay for the higher energy bills? He thinks not. He's accused of letting things get too cold.
All parties, please raise your right hand.
What you are about to witness is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in civil court. Both parties have agreed to drop their claims and have their cases settled here before Judge Marilyn Milian in our forum, the People's Court.
Yes. The People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Milian is now presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Quinn, you're suing Constant Cooling Incorporated, represented here by Mr. Kamak. Kamak. For $1,500 because your electric bill really went up after he did a repair in your house, and you feel that it has something to do with their repair. Tell me what happened.
Yes, Your Honor. Well, I originally contacted Mr. Kamak to fix my AC unit.
What was wrong with your AC unit?
The condenser had frozen over.
Okay, so it wouldn't even turn on?
Correct.
How long had it been that way?
So it had probably been that way maybe like 2 or 3 days. I had some company over. I noticed that as I was trying to cool the unit, the place down, that it was not getting cold.
You're where? You're in Fort Lauderdale?
Coral Springs.
Coral Springs, which is really hot.
Well, yes, having AC on is very important.
No, yeah, that's why I'm surprised you waited so long. So you notice it after a call. So you call him, and then he goes there how many days? How many days were you without AC?
Well, no, the AC was not out permanently. So he probably came over within about 3 days based upon his schedule.
All right, so the AC was not, so it would turn on?
It would turn on, but it just wasn't getting cold.
It wasn't getting cold.
Correct. So I contacted him, letting him know my place isn't getting cold. It looks like the condenser was frozen. So
had you ever used them before?
Yes, I have.
Okay. How many times?
Maybe at least 2 or 3 times.
Okay. Does he come over or somebody else comes over?
So the initial visit was one of his employees. I believe he had 2 of his staff members come by.
Okay.
Yes.
And what did they do?
So they came by, they evaluated the unit. They let me know that it looked like there was a motor unit that needed to be replaced. So in doing that, they had a part they had to order. So he had to come back. So his staff came back again. And this required them to actually physically maneuver the unit to actually replace the motor unit.
What does physically maneuver mean?
Well, because the actual AC unit is inside of a closet inside of my condo.
Right.
Because inside of a condo, inside the closet, the motor unit, I guess, The place of it is something that had to fit. They had to physically move the unit. So
how far did they physically move the unit?
I was not standing over their shoulder while they were doing it.
But did they take it completely out of the closet?
I believe they had to move it out of the closet.
No, I'm asking you if you saw that they did that.
I did not see them do that, no.
Okay, but in any event, you then come, correct?
Correct.
And what do you see?
Well, my technicians went out there first. And then when they went out there, they told me that this unit is very difficult. This motor is very difficult to come out because it was installed improperly. The unit was installed improperly.
How so?
Because the door frame is here, and the top of the unit was here, above
So
the door frame.
what should they have done?
They should have installed at least 8 inches lower so it clears the doorway. So if you have to work on the unit, it's easily you take out the 4 screws in the front.
Why didn't they, though? Why is it elevated?
Because they had some shabby work done.
All right, so what did you do?
So I had 2 technicians went out there, they told me they couldn't do it because it was very difficult to get to. So therefore, I had to schedule to go out there with Mr. Quinn to go in on.
What day did you go out there?
I'd have to check on the texts and stuff.
Please do that.
Okay.
According to you, he goes out there what day?
June 14th, Your Honor.
Does that sound right?
Yes, it was around.
All right, so you go out there June 14th, and then what happens?
Went out there June 14th. I went out there with another one of my technicians, and it took us a very long time to do it because it was so difficult. We basically had to have the phone up there because we couldn't get our head up above the door trim to see it. So we had to put the phone on camera so it could view the screws and reach up over to try to take the screws out.
Right.
So that's how we were able to get it out. And once we got it out, we turned it sideways and we were able to slide it out. And the same
so then you eventually did get the entire AC unit out of there?
Not the AC unit, just the motor assembly.
Just the motor. All right.
Because to take the whole unit out is a big job, which would have cost a lot more money.
Okay, the motor you were changing was what motor?
It was the evaporator motor.
The evaporator. So you put in the new evaporator, screw it all in, with the camera and the angles and trying to get it in there.
Exactly.
And then he pays you, and then what happens?
All right, so the apartment seemed to be getting cooler. What I let him know is that later that evening, I set the thermostat to a specific temperature. I believe it was like 80 degrees. And I noticed,
80?
Well, yeah.
Oh, was it hotter than that in there?
Well, yeah, I just set it to 80, and I was noticing that it was not coming down. So I may have set it down to maybe 78. But the temperature was not coming down. So he told me, well, Patrick, you got to wait. It takes a while for the whole place to cool down. Give it a few hours. As a matter of fact, just contact me the next day, let me know. So I said, okay. I communicated with him the next day, let him know that the thermostat was still set at the same 78 degrees, but the temperature still did not come down. And it was overnight, and I understand it's hot in South Florida, but I didn't believe it was that hot overnight.
Right.
So I expressed my concern about that. I believe I reached out to him again to follow up and say, well, there's a second day, but the thermostat was still, the temperature was not matching the thermostat. Because I always leave my thermostat on automatic so that it can go and get to the temperature I'm more likely to get to, and then it shuts off.
And then it shuts off automatically.
And unfortunately, it had not done that for several days.
So it's just running, and it's not cooling. So what do you do?
Well, so after that, then I believe it had been a couple of weeks because when this had happened, I had a trip to go out of town.
Okay.
So I left town for about a week or so, came back and noticed it was still the same issue. I contacted him again, so this is by July now. I had contacted Mr. Comic again to say, hey, I'm still having the same issue. What can we do? He let me know he's going to send a guy out. So one of his technicians came out. When they saw the unit, they ended up getting up on the roof. They've got a chance to see the outside unit. They determined that there was some Freon that was a problem that was missing, so they added Freon. Then he also went inside, and I believe they did some adjustment to, I guess, what they call boosting the motor or boosting the system so they could blow harder. So the unit got colder. My main concern was that I never really complained about it being cold. I just complained that my unit was not shutting off in automatic, and I had no idea why I was not doing that.
Okay.
So after the guy left, yes, it was colder, but I texted him again two days following. My unit still was not shutting off, even on auto, and I had no idea why.
Okay.
And he did not know why, but that was the last time I saw him, probably until...
Wait, did you ask him to come back and take a look at it?
Well, I just asked him, why is this going on?
And what did he say?
He did not have an answer for it. He just said that, well, this is the summertime and it's hot, so this is what normally happens. That still seems strange to me.
How much later did you call him again?
I have the text correspondence.
There's a big chunk of missing time, like where you have no. How long is that time?
Between the first visit and the second visit, it was probably about 2 weeks, and that was, like I said, because I was out of town. After that, I did not hear back from him.
In July, the last time you spoke to him was when?
July 22nd.
July 22nd, who reaches out to who?
I reached out to him. I texted him several times. Say, hey, Osmond, the thermostat, room temperature won't go below 80 degrees. I set it to 71 at around 8:30 last night. Woke up at 8 a.m. It was still at 81 degrees.
And what's he say to you?
He's no response.
Okay,
the
hold on.
next time I reached out to him was because I got communication. I got a call, then an email from Florida Power and Light to let me know my energy bill was way above normal. And they showed me that the bill was $677 during that billing cycle. So I had texted him on August 3rd.
What is it normally?
My bill has never been above $110.
Wow.
It's a 2-bedroom condo.
No, I know, but the FPL's, pumped its rates up too. But
I don't think they pumped it up that much, though.
So he comes back in, and what does he do? What did FPL come in and do? Did you ask FPL to come on in and do? All right.
So
when does FPL do that?
They do a survey. Believe they had a person come out. They actually scheduled for August 7th.
Okay, so on August 7th, FPL comes out there and they give you their report when?
That same day.
That same day, and they tell you what?
The gentleman sent the email. I actually have the email. I'll read it to you. You mind if I read it to you? He says that FPL hopes the information. No. Says 2.5-ton AC with heat strip running the same time as the AC pulling over 7,000 watts. Advised to repair or disconnect the heat strips. In the air handler, also AC is not cooling properly and may need Freon as well.
So do you communicate this to the defendant?
I shared all this information. I shared the email. I shared the email that came from the FPL staff member with him. I also shared with him the.
So he comes back to the condo.
Yes.
And what's he do?
Well, he said, I believe he ended up dismantling the heat strips. He said,
okay. What are the heat strips? Talk to me about that.
The heat strips is located in the upper portion of the air handler unit, and basically, whenever you call for heat, you turn it to heat. The heat strips come on, and the blower blows off the heat from the heat strips.
Okay. And he says you disconnected the heat strips.
Correct.
Because they were malfunctioning according to FPL.
Correct.
Is there anything you guys could have done when you were doing the repair that would have caused the heat strips to malfunction?
None whatsoever. It's not
Here's where the problem lies, and here's what he's so upset about. You ended up getting a document from FPL. Can I see that document? That tells you when your costs went up day by day, right?
Yes.
So basically, we've got this happening, okay? And this starts on the day you get there, and this ends when he hears from FPL. We've got this crazy thing going on here. So that's his evidence. Judge, I can't prove it. I'm not an AC guy, but for the love of God, look at the evidence. The evidence shows that on the day they leave, this starts happening. Has to be something they did. Convince me that this shouldn't convince me.
Hi, I'm Angie Hicks, co-founder of Angie. When you use Angie for your home projects, you know all your jobs will be done well. Roof repair? Done well. Kitchen sink install? Done well. Deck upgrades? Done well. Electrical upgrade? Done well. Angie's been connecting homeowners with skilled pros for nearly 30 years, so we know the difference between done and done well. Hire high-quality, certified pros at Angie.com.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
How I'm going to convince you is by telling you the same time, whatever damaged the motor, whether it's a power surge or something, it also damaged the heat strip. So when we replaced the motor, that's when he started to use the unit again. Because when we got there, the unit was off the entire time. So when the unit was fixed is when the unit started to be used again. So, and that was within that time span.
Okay, so then what say you to what I imagine he'd say next, which is, well, you're the expert. Why didn't you, when I asked you to come evaluate my AC, why didn't you notice that this wasn't working?
Because normally this is not the first time I've dealt with this situations plenty of times. And what happens is that the customer will call me and say, listen, FPL gave me a call and told me there's an increase in my light bill. Can you please come out and assess the AC unit? Or they said that it might be the heater that's the problem. Can you please and tell me what I need to do? And at that point, I go out and then I check out the heater and I'll let them know, yes, you do have a problem with the heater.
When you went over there, was the heater running?
I did not check the heater.
You
no.
just disconnected the heat strips. Now,
Correct.
you had the heat strips reconnected by a different company, right?
Correct.
What was wrong with the heat strips?
The gentleman, I couldn't tell you specifically. Once again, this is not my wheelhouse. So I just know that the gentleman came by. He spent about 2 to 3 hours in the unit and just reconnected it. And
right,
and
on his bill, what he says is, I have no idea what went wrong because these are working fine.
Correct.
Bizarre, right?
Very strange to me.
Right. So did you put your hand up, or like, how would you test whether the heat strips are working?
You have to use your electric meter, and you could test the components on the heater to see if it's working.
And that's not something you did?
No, because you can't get up there to test it because you can't access
So
it.
I presume then FPL did that.
No, they didn't.
So how did they conclude that the heat strips are on?
Because that's what they automatically assume. That's why they told them that you should have the AC checked and have the heater disconnected. They automatically guess, because a lot of the times FPL, they're not technicians. So they know normally when something like this happens, they tell you two things: have the unit checked and have your heater checked or disconnected.
So he's given me, and I want to hear your response, an explanation for why this shouldn't persuade me it's anything he did. He's saying to me, whatever killed your AC made that malfunction too. I didn't do anything. That's in a separate part. It's not where I'm working here. And I don't even know, Judge, if FPL is right about that. I think they're guessing. But I am a little worried that your new AC guy plugs it back in and says there's nothing wrong with it. I don't know what's happening. So under these circumstances, how do I hold him responsible? I mean, I hear you, and I know you feel like it might have been something they did, and maybe it was something they did, but when you come into court as a plaintiff, you have the burden of proving. It's not a criminal case. You don't have to prove it beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt, but you have to prove that it's more likely than not something that they did. Just the fact that they were present doesn't make that. Now, he does tell you from June, he doesn't come back until July, but he does start texting you in July and telling you, hey, this isn't working, and you don't respond to a couple of those. Why is that?
Because I had a very busy schedule and I didn't know what day that I could have went out there. But when he
you could respond and say, give me a few hours, I need to look at my schedule or something. You don't have to ignore him.
I think I responded and said I'll call you back or something like that.
You did, but
Yes.
then I see him reaching out to you again.
And then that's when he told me about the FPL bill.
Well, I know, but that's like several weeks later. I mean, look, that's at the end of the day, that's on you and not him. I don't think that's great service. But if he's not responding, call a different AC guy and try to figure out what the problem is. I think most people would do what you did and give a chance to this AC guy to fix it. But if it's never turning off, it's going to be a big bill.
Well, one of my other concerns was because that's what I constantly repeated to him, and he never addressed that issue. And he has the knowledge that, okay, if AC units aren't turning off, 1, 2, or 3 things could possibly cause that.
What are the 1, 2, or 3 things that could cause an AC unit not to turn off?
Mainly is because of the heat that we have in the middle of summer, because I explained to him because it's July.
No, but see, you set it at a certain temperature, and if everything's working right, it turns off when it gets to that temperature.
Correct.
Right. But if the temperature never changes, all right, even though the AC's going, I know it's hot, so I know it's not going to be in a minute, but, you know, it's going to be in 2 weeks. That shouldn't be happening.
And that's when I reached out to him and I said, okay, we'll come back out and we'll check it. That's why when the second time we went out there, we found the issue that it was low on refrigerant. And we charged up with the Freon. And then once we charged up with the refrigerant, I even gave that to him at a discount.
At that time when you came back and you charged up the refrigerant, did you check the heating strips?
No, because there was an issue with the refrigerant, so we figured, okay, that was it, which is what he told you, where he said that, yes, he did feel a difference. It was cooling better. It was blowing stronger.
Right, but he had complained before that the thing wouldn't turn off.
And that's why we went back there and we went on the roof and we checked the refrigerant. And then we did find
Does that cause it not to turn off?
Yes, it will.
Because it won't cool?
Exactly.
All right, so after the refrigerant, did he communicate with you, hey, it's still not turning off?
Yes, he did. And then that's when I went back up. I scheduled with him because it's in the middle of the summer, it was extremely busy. So I scheduled with him to go out in, I think it was 2 or 3 days. I said, I think it was a Friday, and I told him I'll come out on Tuesday. And within that time, FPL went out. And then when FPL went out and said, okay, FPL said this, I was out there the next day. And that's where we had the whole conversation, and he told me to have a seat, and then I have a seat, and he pulled his chair in front of me and asked me what we were going to do about this bill, and he kept on saying that, oh, you're going to pay for the bill and all this kind of stuff, or do you want me to take you to court? And he went on my business social media page and said I broke the AC unit, and I didn't break the AC unit, and all that kind of stuff, and tried to slander my company's name.
Okay. You're suing for $973.86 in pain and suffering. Why not just hire a different AC guy and get it fixed? Like, what's the pain and suffering?
Well, can I kind of piggyback off what he was saying? Because I think part of the issue is the time lapse. I
know, and he wants me to, you want me to hold it against him.
Well,
and I would like to say, well, if he's not responding, why don't you call someone else? That way the bill doesn't keep racking.
Yes.
All right. I feel you, I do. Like, I understand, that's the same thing I would think when I take my car in to the mechanic and then they fix something and then the car still isn't working right and they say, well, now it's something else. Well, why didn't you just say that from the beginning? Well, I still fixed your thing, and so now you got to pay, I was hoping that would solve it. Now you got to pay for this because I'm going to fix this too. And then, I don't know who's right. Like, I'm just basically, he has a boat payment and I'm going to pay what he tells me to pay, right? And, so I understand the frustration, but I've got to have something more. I've got to have, oh, he damaged it. All right, then are they damaged? No. Your new guy comes in and says, I don't know what the problem was. I put him in there working fine. I just can't do it under these facts, and I'm ruling in favor of the defendant. Good luck, folks.
Both sides, hold on, please.
Well, the plaintiff tried. I mean, he did his homework. He did a little bit of everything to try and convince the judge that he should prevail here. He was suing for $1,500, but he did not get it. Mr. Quinn, how do you feel right now? What are you thinking?
Well, I'm very disappointed. Ultimately, I had an issue. After he fixed the initial issue, a new one arose, and I did not even know about the new one for at least another month. But in the meantime, I constantly reminded him of what was going on. Incorrectly, he pretty much ignored what I said was going on. He never resolved the issue that I said was going on. He fixed everything but what I originally told him about, and that's what led to the issue that I had. But unfortunately, the judge did not recognize that it was no fault of my own, but an AC person that just did not address the issue that I told him about.
All right, good luck to you. All right, well, that's it for the plaintiff. He just did not convince the judge. Let's see what Mr. Cormack feels about it. You're the defendant, sir. How do you feel now? Do you think you did everything you could to help him?
Yes, I did. I did everything I possibly could do.
Did you think that you might possibly be on the hook for this?
I don't think so. Because the thing is, if he would approach the situation differently, I probably would have been able to help him more. But because of the way everything played out, it was like, I can't help you anymore. I gave him discounts on work that was done. And went out there numerous times to try to help him take care of the issue. And when FPL came and did the assessment of the energy usage, I went out there and I disconnected it free of charge. I didn't charge him anything, and I gave him discounts prior to that, and he just didn't appreciate it.
All righty, Harvey, what do you think?
Okay, Doug, one of the reasons why the plaintiff lost this case is because it's not enough just to prove that there was damage. You have to prove what the consequences of that damage would be. In this case, the plaintiff is essentially saying it caused his electric bills to soar. If you can't provide that nexus, that connection between whatever the defendant may have done and the damage caused to the plaintiff, well, the plaintiff then loses.
I understand that I can sue someone in either the state the loan took place in or the state they now live in. But if they legally did not change their address, can I still sue in their new home state?
The test for jurisdiction, normally jurisdiction for a loan between you and me, you can get sued in the state you reside in or live in, and you can get sued in a state that you do business in, or in a state that you have minimal contacts with for purposes of like state law.
The idea is that behind jurisdiction is that's the right court.
Right.
Because we're
exactly.
right. And so on a loan, the person yesterday also owed you the money. So the debt and the lateness is still happening there.
Right.
But
whether you officially changed your
normally
address,
you have to sue where the transaction took on a contract where a transaction actually took place.
Right.
But a loan is a little bit different. But go ahead.
Right. Judges in different states apply laws. Like if you have a loan that took place under Florida law, and then you end up filing a lawsuit in Georgia, a judge in Georgia is applying Florida law. They do it all the time. So it's not like it absolutely has to happen in Florida.
Right.
So in this case, it's not going to be...
Yeah, it makes no difference that he didn't formally change his address.
Right. Some people can do that to avoid being subject to jurisdiction, or who knows, or to get served, avoid getting served, things like that.
This is the plaintiff, Tanisha Simpson. She says she rented an apartment from the defendant, her landlord. And now that she's moved out, the woman's come up with all sorts of made-up excuses so she doesn't have to return her full security. She's not about to let this woman take her money without stating her case to the judge, and fully expects to walk out of here with the $772.09 she owed. This is the defendant, Adina Hall. She says the plaintiff changed the locks on the unit without her permission. She left trash in the apartment when she vacated, and the woman stiffed her on some of the rent. This lady has some nerve suing her today, because if anyone's owed money today, it's certainly not the plaintiff. She's accused of stiffing a tenant. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $500 for 10 months of late fees.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket, the plaintiff says there's no other way of putting it. Her landlord is a nasty woman who isn't returning the money that the plaintiff is owed. But the defendant says the woman was a terrible tenant who stiffed her on rent, and she's not giving her a penny back. It's the case of moving on.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
All right, Ms. Simpson, you're suing your former landlord, Ms. Hall, for $772.09, the balance of a security deposit that she refuses to give you. Tell me what happened.
Good morning, Your Honor. I moved into the unit April 1st, 2017. The defendant purchased the property of July 30th, 2019. I moved out December 29th, 2020. I gave the previous landlord a security deposit of $1,800. When I moved, Ms. Hall only gave me a check of $1,028. So my remaining balance is $772 that she's owed me.
Okay, so let me ask you, Ms. Hall, why did you withhold the remaining amount of her security deposit?
So originally, I told her that she had changed the locks and that there was trash on the side of the house. And also, she informed me by a text on December 29th that the rent for December was in the mailbox along with the keys. That is not enough notice for me to put in place a tenant for January 1st.
Okay, so let's go back to you, Ms. Simpson. What kind of notice did you give her?
I sent her a text message letting her know that I was going to be out in December.
When did you send that text message?
I believe it was December 29th.
Oh, all right. So she's right when she says that you told her, hey, I'm out, while you were walking out, as opposed to giving her a month's notice.
No. I was previously supposed to be out in October, but being as though COVID came, everything was delayed.
Right, but okay, that is water under the bridge. So you're supposed to get out, you don't. Okay, that's a you thing, not a her thing. But when do you give her the notice that, hey, this is my last day? Because it is one thing to say, I'm going to be leaving, and then it's another thing to say, I'm going to be leaving in 30 days. Here's your notice, or 50, whatever your state requires. You're supposed to give notice because the idea is that she's supposed to have enough time to re-rent it so she doesn't lose a month. But if you just tell her, hey, I'm walking out the door, that's not notice. Even if everyone knew at some point you'd walk out the door, because who knows if you're walking out the door in December, because you didn't walk out the door in October and you didn't walk out the door in November. So she doesn't know you're going to walk out until you tell her, hey, this is the day I'm walking out. And you should be telling her with sufficient notice that your state requires. You can't just, right. So it's not notice. So she's right to keep January. Now, this was a Section 8 housing situation, correct, Ms. Hall?
Correct.
So did you get paid for January from Section 8?
No, I did not.
At all?
Not at all. And not only that, but I was deducted $300 from Section 8 for December because apparently Ms. Simpson had signed a new lease on December 16th with somebody else. So Section 8 was paying them that half, and they deducted it from my half.
So if you signed a new lease on December 16th or 15th, or effective the 15th, which means you probably signed it in the beginning of December, why didn't you just give her notice that you were leaving?
She knew that I was leaving back in October. But
no,
Section 8
on October, did you give her a date? Did you have a new apartment in October?
No, I was
right.
there.
You're not getting what notice means. Notice doesn't mean, shall I leave someday? That's what you gave her in October. I'll be leaving someday. That's not notice. Notice is, my last day is X. That's notice. So now we know that you've already signed another lease at the beginning of December for a new place. In fact, Section 8's even paying for it. And yet you don't move until December 29th, and you don't even tell her until December 29th. How is that fair? I mean, if you knew, all you had to do was tell her, hey, I've signed a new lease, I'm out on the end of December. That's all you had to say in the beginning of December, and then she could have found another tenant. And in fact, I got news for you. If Section 8 didn't pay for January, and your lack of notice is why she didn't get January, she could withhold from you the entire amount, including the Section 8 amount she didn't get.
Exactly.
Right.
How? Because I was already out. She received the letter.
Because you didn't give notice. Here's how it works. You have rights and obligations. Not just rights. Rights and obligations as a tenant. Your obligation is that you need to tell the landlord X amount of days before you go, this is my last day. The fact that in October everyone knew you were going to find a new place to live is not notice, because no one knows when you're going to do it. You were supposed to do it in October. Did you do it? No, COVID hit. Then in November, did you leave? No. So you are in the worst position to argue that she was on notice, because no one knows what you're doing because you don't tell them. So you sign a new lease in the beginning of December, you don't tell her that, and then you don't give her the required notice. And how much did you deduct from the security deposit, Ms. Hall?
$772.
Which represents what?
It represented her part of the rent. And at that
time, for what month?
The 7072 represents $579 for January.
It represents $579 for January, and what else?
And I was factoring the locks and the trash. She said the trash wasn't hers. So I said, okay. She said she put the regular locks back, but I still have problems opening and closing, so I still had to change the locks. And then Section 8 informed me that they deducted $300 from my December rent, and they were not going to pay January. So basically, the total is way above.
Way above that you're out.
Way above that I'm owed, yes.
Okay, let me see if I've got this straight. How much does Section 8 pay for December?
They paid me $537.
And how much are they supposed to pay you? What did they pay you the month before that?
They're supposed to be like $837.
So you would actually technically be entitled to the $579 that she pays in January because she didn't give you notice, the $837 that Section 8 pays in January because she didn't give you notice, and the $300 that Section 8 took back. That's what she would be entitled to. And you're complaining that she took $772? You have a counterclaim against her for $500 for late fees 10 months. What's that about?
She's a chronic late payer of rent. She just does not pay her rent on time. As you can see, for December, she paid me on December 29th.
Okay, but
and that's a history.
You would have to show me each time that she was late. Do you have all the checks and the dates and all that, or are you just guessing?
I have enough to show the month because she would text me and let me know when the rent was there. So I have like a list
Right.
She just pays it when she feels like
How does she
paying
pay it?
Money order.
All right, so what do the texts say?
The text says rent is in the box.
I got it. Okay. So now show me 10 times when she says that past the first of the month. I guess that's the way you can prove it.
Okay.
Well, we know there's at least a $50 late fee for December by the plaintiff's own admission.
Your Honor, can I speak?
Yeah.
She went down to Section 8 in July and told them that she wanted me out. So they sent me a letter stating that. So when they sent me the letter, they give you at least 3 months to find an apartment. So I was supposed to be going in October. Being as though COVID was still here and in effect, I couldn't find anything.
Stop. You're still misunderstanding the entire case. You're thinking that because she says, I don't want to rent to this lady anymore, and you're allowed time to find a place, that somehow means that you could say, hey, I just walked out. That is not notice. You still have a requirement, just like mere mortals, whether Section 8's paying your rent or not. You still have to follow the law. You still have to give your landlord X amount of notice. That way they can rent it out and not lose a month. You still have to do that. So if it takes you 3 months, good for you. But the worst part is you actually signed a lease in the beginning of December. You didn't have the courtesy to let her know you did that, so that she could get somebody else in there.
But even once...
You know what? You can stop looking, Ms. Hall. Here's where we are. On your lawsuit against her for the rest of your security deposit, 0 for the reasons I have gone over. And on your lawsuit, your counterclaim against her for the late fees, I'm amending your pleadings to conform to the evidence. You actually had a right to sue for more. You're at $1,766. But you're out at least another $500 because you're out the $300 for December. You're out the rent from both of them for January, and you're out at least $50 in late fee for December. So I am going to award you your $500 against her on your counterclaim, and I am going to call it 0 on your claim against her for more of your security deposit. Folks, listen up. The rules still apply. They do. They apply to everybody. That's what it means to live in a civilized society. It doesn't matter who's paying the rent. And if you're fortunate enough to have government assistance, it doesn't matter. You still got to be decent and give the notice.
So the plaintiff does not get her security back. In fact, she's got to pay more money to the defendant. Ms. Simpson, what do you think about what the judge just decided? She lowered the boom on you.
Her verdict was horrible, but it is what it is. The landlord knows she was a slumlord. She knew what was going on. She knew I received the extension, and that's that. Have a good day.
Yeah, but you know, you could have alerted her to the fact that you signed a new lease. You didn't do that. There were a lot of things you didn't do right.
Okay.
You're aware of that, right?
That's fine.
All right, that's fine. All right, you got to pay her another $500. So that's the judge's decision. All right, Ms. Hall, I guess you're kind of elated about this. The judge really found in your favor big time. What do you think?
Yeah, and as she said, I could have gone for more, but I don't like confusion and I don't like commotion. So this tenant has gotten away with so much, even changing my locks without permission when I was trying to refinance. So I lost out on a loan because she wouldn't let the appraiser in. It's been a lot, but sometimes people, you're kind and they take that for weakness. But, you know, everything works out.
Bottom line, I know you're thrilled she's gone, right?
Amen.
Amen. Okay, that's good for you. All right, that'll bring this case to a close. Amen indeed. Harvey?
Doug, generally leases require 30 days notice for a tenant to move. But even if there's no lease and nothing is said, generally courts say 30 days is the minimum notice a tenant has to give.
I was bow hunting on my friend's property and shot a deer. It ran into his neighbor's field, but the neighbor wouldn't let me enter to get the deer or my arrow. Can he do that?
Yes, he can do that. He can deny you permission to enter the land because it's trespass if you just go out onto the land, and you may lose your arrow and you may lose your deer or your elk or whatever it is that you were able to bring down legally during hunting season, I'm assuming.
Right.
That's the general rule. And
you don't have a right to go pursue your...
No, not without permission. I mean,
your hunt.
You're taking a chance.
Yeah,
it could be a misdemeanor trespass. But interestingly, I met somebody out in Vail, Colorado, who played an incredible prank many years ago involving hunting season and bow hunting. On the first day in the fall of elk season, he rented an elk costume with the antlers and like little, hoof mittens and stuff from the waist up, right? And he got in his truck and he took his friend and he roped his friend across the front of the truck, right? I put like some fake blood on his shirt and just put him on the front of the truck, and then he drove into the ranger station
I'd like to think
check
that he
in.
set this up in front of the ranger station and wasn't actually driving.
He didn't have to drive far, but he pulled into the parking lot and he had to check in, and apparently the rangers just like wet their pants laughing when they saw the game warden, I guess it was, when they saw this friend tied to the front of the elk getting out of the car. So the elk got his revenge.